it into our program.
Professor Dr. Kamran has to come in, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm admitting. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, can you do that? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Professor is not yet. No.
Yeah, Professor Joe is already in, so we just have.
Shabir,
I'll send the link to Shabir. I think he should be joining.
Professor Dr. Kamran has to come in, right? Echoing.
Yeah, he has
Yes,
some
but-
technical problems.
Yeah, I can't see him.
Can you do that? Yeah.
He will be with us in 1 minute.
Professor Joe is already in, so we just have.
I'll send the link to Shabir. I think he should be.
Derek, I think it's echoing. Derek, something is wrong.
Something is wrong.
Derek, someone is, or is it? There's like a lag.
I can't see him. Can you do that?
He will be with us in 1 minute.
But without anyone talking, the sound is coming, no?
There's a lag. Something is.
Yeah, there's a lag.
What is that?
Is it multiple device or is it because of the YouTube? I think it's echoing, Derek. Something is wrong. See, it's coming.
Wait, I just muted everyone. So it's coming from someone here because I just muted everyone. So it is coming from somewhere here. Right, so the sound is coming because I just muted everyone and
Is it
here.
Is it better
and
now?
it's playing.
Yeah, it is better now.
Okay.
Welcome, Professor Thornton.
I just muted everyone.
Okay, Joe. Joe is already. I think you can operate. I think you're a co-host. Yeah. Okay. Very good. It's 2:30 in the morning. Thank you very much for joining us. It's 2:30. Joe has joined us from Florida at 2:30 in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah, it is better now. Welcome.
Okay. Now we only
There's
have.
something wrong, Derek. There's something wrong. It's echoing.
Joe is already. I think you can operate. I think you're a co-host.
Not here.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. It's 2:30 in the morning. Thank you very much.
Something wrong.
Yes, it's 2:30. Joe has joined us from Florida at 2:30.
Mary, I think
somebody's
it's
mic.
something to do with YouTube. I've seen this before. What
Is it
happens when
YouTube?
you connect to YouTube? It gives you feedback. And
Yeah,
what
that's
I'm
what-
hearing is
I
Russell
noticed that. Now it should be
popping
fine.
it later.
Can you then? Yeah, maybe we can put it on later because.
No,
we-
now it's fine, sir. I muted that. I've
Oh,
muted
good.
that.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay. Thank you, Trevor. See, Trevor's got.
All experience.
Yeah, if one makes a mistake, you learn from it.
Yeah, true. Shall we admit everyone because it's past?
Yes.
Wait, one
5
sec.
past.
Shabir
No.
is.
That's okay. He can come in because we don't have the numbers.
No, he's having
not too
trouble. I think he's having some problem. He's trying to. Shabir, you're still not able to get. Derek sent you the link. Derek, Shabir says
I sent it to Shabir.
no, he says it comes up as the host has got another meeting on. Huh? Derek, which email did you send it to him on?
I sent it on WhatsApp.
He sent it on WhatsApp. Anything, whichever, but you can do it either way. Thank you. Thank you.
I think he can join in.
Hmm.
Dr. Russell, we can start. He can join in.
All right, let's start.
Tara, admit all, Tara, please.
I can admit
Okay.
it. Others are also writing they're not being let in. I don't know.
No, we just started it, so they'll come in.
Oh.
Derek, probably you can give the house rules also so that.
Okay. मैं बॉडी बोल रहा हूँ मैसेज फोन करने के लिए ठीक है और जैसा मैसेज पे मैंने बोला हाँ ठीक है हाँ इसमें का भाभी को मैंने सुरेश देशमुख का फोटो भेजा उसको बोल दो कि इमीडिएटली नहीं डालू ऐसा बड़ा डालू
All right, you want to?
Okay, so shall
All
I?
right. Yes, yes,
Okay.
Tara.
Yeah. Okay, so on behalf of Hawler Medical University and the Department of Education, UNESCO Chair in Bioethics Haifa, it is a privilege to welcome all dignitaries to this prestigious event. Good morning. It's a beautiful morning in Erbil. I hope everyone is enjoying a peaceful day. Today we are making history for medical education in the region, as it is the official inauguration of the Bioethics Unit of UNESCO Chair in Bioethics Haifa in Hawler Medical University. It feels as though it was only yesterday that a chance opportunity initiated a process that grew to become the starting point for the birth of a major development in the local medical education scene. Professor D'Souza was supervising an international event where I was attending as a participant, and one question led to another, and the idea was laid for the establishment of such a unit. Now, many days and months later, we have gathered here to give it the validity it deserves. Welcome, everyone, to the inauguration of the Bioethics Unit in Hawler Medical University. So now we move to listen virtually, or move virtually to listen to the head of the unit, Professor Ali Al-Dabbagh. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Greetings from Erbil, the capital of Kurdistan region. I wish you all a very pleasant day all around the globe, whether it's early in the morning, afternoon, evening, or late at night. And a belated happy Diwali. I like history, and if you allow me, I will talk a few words about the history of this place. Like all parts of Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, Erbil dates back to at least 3,000 years before Christ, and some say even 6,000. And arguably, it's one of the oldest living cities in the world. Erbil has been ruled by Sumer and Assyria, and the Assyrians who gave it its name, Arba Ilod, means the city of 4 gods. Later on, it was controlled by Medians and the Persians, and it was at the Battle of Gaugamela or Arbela, which is just south of the city, where Alexander the Great defeated Darius III of Persia. Then came the kingdom of Hadiab and conversion to Christianity, the Umayyads and Abbasids, and then the Seljuks and Mongols and the Ottoman Empire. And lastly, the British Mandate until the Kingdom of Iraq was established in 1922. So you could imagine that people from different races, ethnicities, and religions have lived here, and most of them still do. And for most of our history, we have lived together in harmony. But nevertheless, there were extreme violation of human rights. And lastly, of course, you remember Saddam's regime in the 80s and 90s of the 20th century. And lastly, by the ISIS for the last few years. We are very honored and excited to achieve this recognition from UNESCO. And we show the UNESCO deep belief in the importance of education in bioethics. in shaping a bright
Okay.
future for medicine and healthcare professionals, not only in Hawler Medical University, but across Kurdistan, Iraq as a whole.
I'll send that again to you.
We believe it will open up a number of opportunities for international collaboration. Today, the chair comprises of more than 223 units in different countries across 5 continents of the world. And if my counting is right, we are the 224th unit to be established and recognized. And as you heard earlier from my colleague, Dr. Atara, we owe it all to Professor Russell de Souza, the head and chair of Asia Pacific UNESCO Chair in Bioethics. So on behalf of me and the university, I'd like to extend our deepest appreciation and gratitude to him. And I would like also thank Professor Mary Matthew, head of Bioethics Indian program, and Professor Derek de Souza for all the support they gave us for the last few weeks. And of course, to the president of our university, Assistant Professor Kamran Yunus, the vice president, Dr. Nazar Shabil, and of course, our dear Dr. Tara Shalal. Hawler Medical University is a young and energetic university and the only specialized medical university in Iraq. And with its dynamism and visions, we will lay a strong base here in our mission to spread awareness on bioethics to other educational institutes in Iraq. Since the 1970s, the field of bioethics has grown considerably. While it's true that bioethics today includes issues in medical ethics, its origin lies in the fact that it goes much further than the various professional codes of ethics concerned. It entails reflection on societal changes and on global balances brought about by scientific and technological developments. And of course, medical ethics is taught as a transverse issue within the curriculum, but still it is not the same as having a structured program integrated throughout the whole years of the undergraduate program. And there is a clear need for students and physicians being trained to understand the social, cultural, and environmental contexts within which they will practice, just like they are taught anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry. We do believe that medical ethics and human rights be taught at every medical school as obligatory and assessed part of the medical school program. We hopefully will see a firmly established ethics research and teaching structure at the university level. This unit could serve as a cornerstone in the direction of a subtle, persistent, and steady institution in bioethics. And this will have a model character for other Iraqi universities. Universities, especially at this period of unprecedented global challenges of most demanding complexity, like the different challenges of COVID-19 pandemic. Our objects for this unit includes many areas. The first one is the teaching of undergraduate and postgraduate students in order to raise awareness of bioethical questions, debates, and to bolster a stable and long-term bioethics program at Hawler Medical University. The second aspect is research. What we need to do is to provide complemental and supportive research regarding ethical issues in the main research areas of Hawler Medical University, one of which is what is related to female gender, and we hope we will work hand in hand with the Center of Research and Education in Women's Health at the university for bioethical issues related to female gender, for example, circumcisions and female circumcision and reproductive medicine, and many other topics, including gender equality. Third area will be to build collaboration with other units across the globe in the many fields of bioethics. And I will end my speech by emphasizing on the growing importance of bioethics, and I quote Antonio Fauci saying, "Bioethics is very, very important field as we get more and more in the arena of understanding science and getting better opportunities. The fact that you can do things with biological science that have an impact on a human being means you must have ethical standards. Thank you very much. Back to you, Tara.
Thank you, sir. Now we move to His Excellency's representative, the Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Aman Saeed. Over to you, sir. Can you unmute? Oh, yeah. Sir, can you just...
Yeah,
you're audible now.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tara. Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. It's an honor and privilege to be with you on behalf of the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research of the Kurdistan Regional Government. Thanks to organizers of this event for inviting me and for the hard work to bring all of us together in this inauguration event, which is the opening for bioethics unit in Hawler Medical University, Medical School, and the UNESCO chair directly under the Asia Pacific Network unit of the International Network of UNESCO chair in bioethics. We appreciate all the efforts and contribution from all partner institutions to support Hawler Medical University in this initiative. I can proudly say you've done the right choice. Hawler Medical University is the leading institution in Kurdistan region, well known for high quality education and genuine contribution to knowledge through their high impact research. They have been remarkably successful in leading wide range of international activities and collaboration. They are also leading curriculum development project for undergraduate medical education through introduction and implementation of new curriculum, which is consistent with the learning outcome of 21st century, in accordance with good medical practice that ensure our graduate will make the care of patient their first concern, applying their knowledge and skill in a competent and ethical manner, and using their ability to provide leadership and to analyze complex uncertainties. We've been working extremely hard to provide opportunities for our new generation of doctors to become scientists, scholar, excellent practitioner, and professional in their field. We are, as you all know, living in an exciting time of fundamental technological changes. Coronavirus pandemic is also speeding up history. There are many indications that this crisis and this technological disruption is going to transform many aspects of life. Education could be one of them. Global society, governments, businesses, academia, and civil society have the responsibility to work together to better understand the emerging trends. In recent years, we've been lucky, especially in the technological development. We've been lucky to see fundamental innovation in medicine and biological realm. It took more than 10 years. For example, we have a very good example to see how technology is affecting the biological realm and also the medical practice. Previously, it took more than 10 years at the cost of more than $2.7 billion to complete the Human Genome Project. But today, a genome can be sequenced in a few hours for less than $1,000. Other technological changes, for example, nanotechnology, neurotechnology, 3D bioprint, artificial intelligence, gene editing, among others, will create new ethical challenges for biology and medical practice. You know, the technology of gene editing by CRISPR-Cas9 having, or for example, leaving us with a fundamental and most challenging question, particularly from the ethical perspectives, how genetic editing will revolutionize medical research and medical treatment. With the constant advances of technology, unprecedented moral, ethical, and legal concerns are surfacing. Challenging them into substantial debate will get us closer to their fair solutions. We are proud of, as a nation and as a government, we are very proud to be part of this process. Kurdistan region is working very hard and investing reasonable resources to develop higher education and promote research and development. We've been working on capacity building, like scholarship program, and we've invested in university campuses, research infrastructure, and we've been trying to develop sustainable quality assurance system for teaching and research. Some universities already managed to approach international accreditation bodies, aiming at reaching the threshold of international accreditation. For the last 4 years, our universities were working extremely hard to approach European higher education system through implementation of Bologna process as part of our internationalization strategy. If you look at the research and development data from Kurdistan region, you will see an exponential increase in international publications, specifically publication in journals indexed by Clarivate Analytics, which is considered as a reliable indicator for our contribution to knowledge. We've been working on strengthening IT infrastructure within universities and incorporating technology in teaching and learning, together with introducing key concepts of modern, student-centered, innovative, and entrepreneurial pedagogical skill and competencies. We are, as we know, living in the age of technological disruptions, together with this pandemic, which is rapidly disrupting human society, economy, politics, and philosophy. We need to work together with our international partner, research together, to face these challenges. We strongly believe in more investment in our education system, consistent with the requirement of the 21st century. I would like to reiterate our commitment to promote and respect values and principles of moral implications of medicine and bioscience. We are planning to follow a multidisciplinary approach through involvement of a variety of disciplinary background like medicine, nursing, law, theology, philosophy, history, and other social science to address the questions of policy and practices of bioethics, as well as promoting key principles of healthcare ethics, including autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice. I hope this event provides a platform for further discussion and create more opportunities for further collaboration by sharing experiences and learning from good practices. We look forward to creating an ecosystem for research-driven policy and legislative reform consistent with the requirement of this rapidly growing trend in higher education. Let me finally wish you a very, very successful event and fruitful discussion. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Kagdiktor, for an uplifting, outstanding talk, as usual. Thank you. Now, can we welcome the Honorable Professor Russell D'Souza, who's the head of the Asia Pacific Division UNESCO Chair in Bioethics, Haifa, all the way from Melbourne, Australia. Over to you, sir.
Your Excellency, Dr. Ahmad Said, from the Ministry, the President, Dr. Kamaran Yunus, and the Vice President, Dr. Nasra, Professor Amnon Kami, the head and chair of the UNESCO chair, who is with us here today from Tel Aviv, and all the other delegates, Professor Mary Matthew and Derek, who have been part of bringing this together, and we have our students, and particularly want to welcome all the other heads from Malaysia, from several countries are here, including from United States and so forth, who have come along. They at 2:30 in the morning, we have Professor Shabir and Professor Joe Thornton and Professor Dr. Tiong Lo from Melbourne, the unit from Melbourne, So you have from Germany, they've all come to welcome this unit. And I'm delighted to be here because I believe I've been having discussions with Professor Ali and Professor Nazra, and all of you are part of, have joined our program. And I'm delighted that the program, particularly under the UNESCO Chair in Bioethics at the University of Haifa, as you know, well, 220, we cover the all the continents, and in terms of the Department of Education is part of the international program, and that's why we have from the Department of Education all of you here. Now, I'm delighted that you have joined us. We will. I want to say we had a wonderful Dr. Ahmad Said give a wonderful exposition on your future and what your ministry and so forth have. I'm delighted, Your Excellency, to have met you virtually. In the normal course, this inauguration, we usually come there and attend, and I'm delighted that we are doing this virtually. And because of that, as you rightly said, technology has brought with this ability from down under the world, and we have Shabir from Ontario in Canada, and you know, from all parts, and Trevor Gibbs. I'm delighted, Professor Trevor Gibbs, the president of the European Association of Medical Education for Europe, is with us here, who's also part of our the Department of Education. So we're all from the world come together here, and that's a great moment and a sign of solidarity. Solidarity, we have been talking of solidarity, which is Article 13 of the Universal Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights. But we've been talking about this for the last 29 or 30 webinars on bringing solidarity and cooperation. But I'm delighted that we are displaying this solidarity across the world here today, demonstrated in our cooperation, solidarity in education of bioethics, and indeed medical and health science education. That's what we're all here for, and we stand for that. And I'm extremely delighted to have this. I had the opportunity of meeting Professor Nazra and also Professor Ali, and of course Tara has been, as she mentioned, I didn't even know where she was from, but I just got a message asking me a question on an ethical dilemma, and I thought she was probably from one of the many units that are here. As you can see, many of our Asia Pacific divisions are here. So I asked her, which division are you from? And she said she was from, and I didn't know where this place was, because I hadn't heard of you know. Then I learned a lot and realized even more that you're not very far from Haifa. You're compared to me, you're next door. And I thought this was wonderful, and I'm so delighted that when I sent a message to Professor Amnon Kami, he was welcome. He wrote to me that he was delighted to welcome the Hawler Medical University into this vast international program, joining from all over the world. So I'm here, and to even substantiate it, I'm delighted to see Professor Amnon Kami here with us today. So once again, I want to welcome all of you. We have a nice program, and as it stands, we usually have this firstly, but we have the writ of establishment which Professor Kami had signed earlier for you. I'm just going to read that out, and I think it was addressed to Professor Dr. Kamran Yunus, who's the university president, who made the application, and of course the application was received, and on establishing that all the requirements of the chair, the UNESCO chair in bioethics at Haifa, were met. Professor Amnon Kami writes here that he hereby and we now established today that the 20th day of the year 2020, we confirmed the approving and establishment of the bioethics unit of the Iraq Kurdistan Regional Program of the UNESCO Chair and of the International Bioethics Network of the UNESCO Chair in Bioethics at Haifa Medical University. And the approval was signed by Professor Amnon Kami, the head and chairholder of the UNESCO Chair in Bioethics. So that is the formal approval which was handed over to Professor Yunus. I'm delighted to welcome you. Congratulations on joining our program. And on behalf of Professor Amnon Kami and myself and all of us at the from the UNESCO program, international program, and indeed from the Asia Pacific division and from the Department of Education, a very, very big welcome and congratulations. And we look forward to the continued interface, interaction, and for us growing together. Now, the next one, next I'd like to now also bring forth the appointment in the application that was put forward. Professor Dr. Ali Al-Dabagh, who is the Dean of the College of Medicine, has been appointed the head of the bioethics unit of the International Network of the UNESCO Chair at the Hawler Medical College. And this, of course, was very specifically to fulfill the objectives of the chair of stimulating, teaching, training, and research in bioethics in medical and health science education. Again, approved and signed by Professor Amnon Kami. And of course, as the head of Asia Pacific, I welcome you into our program. So,
thank you very much.
Yeah, and I have been delighted to spend time, and I know you're in part of our program in our courses and so forth. So very welcome to you for that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and again, the other one was the UNESCO chair at the application. Again, we had Dr. Tara M. Shalal, who is the coordinator of Medical Education Department. She, Dr. Shalal, has been appointed the secretary of the bioethics unit of the International Network of the UNESCO Chair in Bioethics at Hawler Medical University. Again, on today, on the 20th of November, where we inaugurate this to fulfill the objectives of the chair of stimulating, teaching, training, and research in bioethics in medical and health science education. So, Dr. Tara, I welcome you, and yes, congratulations. She's having her certificate. Thank you. And congratulations, we all joined together, Dr. May, all of us in our program congratulate all of you in this very important, memorable moment that you joined us, okay? So we wish you all. We also have a list of the steering committee. This is the foundation steering committee, and you have the writs in the which you had submitted, the list of steering committee that were submitted in the application, which have been approved. And I'm now going to ask the head of the unit, Professor Ali Al-Dabagh, to read them out, and then you will give them the foundation certificate that they have joined as the steering committee, foundation steering committee of the unit. Is that all right?
Yeah, so I will read out the list of the steering committee. First, I'll start by Assistant Professor Nazar Shabila, who is the Vice President of the university. Assistant Professor Dr. Daraham Rashid Saeed, the Dean of the College of Dentistry. Assistant Professor Dr. Aladdin Al-Naqshbandi, the Dean of College of Pharmacy. And Dr. Yusuf Muhammad Gardi, the Assistant Professor, is the Dean of College of Nursing. And our own Dr. Hamdia Mirkhan is a Professor and Dean of the College of Health Sciences. And Assistant Professor Dr. Sherzad Shabo, the Director of the Quality Assurance at the University. Assistant Professor Dr. Nazdar Al-Khatib, the Head of Medical Education Department. Dr. Payman, our Assistant Professor, she's the Head of the Basic Science Department at the College of Medicine. Professor Dr. Shahla Alaf, she's an obstetrician and gynecologist. Professor Muruj Al-Ani, a pediatrician. My dear friend, Professor Dr. Sirwan Kamel Ali, is a professor in psychiatry. Assistant Professor Dr. Rowan Hawezi, he's an assistant professor in surgery. And Assistant Professor Dr. Fathullah, unfortunately, she is not here with us. She's a bit ill. Hope her a speedy recovery. She's an assistant professor in biophysics. And Dr. Dilman Azad, she's works in forensic medicine.
A big congratulations and a welcome to this foundation steering committee at this August meeting and of the bioethics unit of the Hawler Medical University. I want also to acknowledge and thank Professor Nazar Shabila. I had the opportunity of meeting both of them in founding and planning and bringing this whole program together. Dr. Nazar Shabila, thank you very much as the Vice President of the University, and welcome to our program into solidarity in ethics, bioethics, and medical education and health science education. Thank you.
And we thank Professor Dr. Russell D'Souza, Head and Chair of the Asia Pacific Division, for handing the establishment writ certificates and assisting us in opening this unit of bioethics, the inauguration of Medical University Bioethics Unit of the International Network of the UNESCO Chair in Bioethics. We also thank all the dignitaries around here, the representative of the Ministry of Higher Education and the Ministry of Health, and all the distinguished guests from other units of bioethics around the globe. Thank you for being with us. And we continue our program of international webinar with an eminent panel of international speakers who are simply on camera with us here. Welcome to you all. We have Professor Trevor Gibbs, who's the president of the Association for Medical Education in Europe, AME. Professor Gibbs is a well-known WHO consultant in primary care and medical education. He's a professor of medical education, and he writes extensively on the subject of medical education with special interests in curriculum development, social accountability of medical schools. Also, we have Professor Mary Matthew, who's a professor of pathology. She's the head of the Indian program of the UNESCO Chair in Bioethics. She has a special interest in bioethics and fetal pathology. She will be with us in the panel of discussion for today. Also, we have Professor Joe Thornton. He's a professor of psychiatry at the University of Florida. He's also a part of the International Steering Committee of the UNESCO Chair in Bioethics, and also part of the International Committee of the IIOPM. We have also the distinguished Dr. Shabir Amanullah. He is professor of psychiatry based in Canada. He is presently part of the International Steering Committee of the UNESCO Chair in Bioethics and partly in the International Faculty for the certificate courses in bioethics. He's also part of the International Committee of the IIOPM. Also, we have Professor Ved Prakash Mishra. He has been an important member of the Medical Council in India, and he helped shape the course of medical education in the country. And he was responsible for piloting the unique modules to introduce competency-based education in the country. So welcome to you all, and we would like to start with the topics for the webinar today with Professor Gibbs, if you may, please, sir.
You can share screen, Trevor, if you.
Yes, I'm going to share the screen, if I may. Hopefully you can see that all now. First of all, I want to say how honored I am to be here today. I'm just listening to you all there, and a wonderful opening discussion, and it's tremendous what I think both Hawler has done now and will do in the future, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the development of that school, and I hope we can keep in touch. But also my distinguished colleagues and friends from around the world. It's an absolute honor to be with you today, and I'm very grateful for you giving me this opportunity. May I say that as president of AMI, which is now the largest association of medical education in the world, we're not just in Europe, we're a global association. We represent something like 25,000 different people around the world. And I would like to bring that community to Hawler and say well done as well. Congratulations on behalf of our larger AMI community. It's a tremendous opportunity to talk to you today. And I have no doubt that you probably share, I hope, some of the passion that I have for medical education. I came from medical education from a background of primary care, a background of oncology, and I have no conflict of interest today, other than the conflict of interest which I share with everybody else, which is a passion for medical education, a passion for seeing universities develop, and a great passion for seeing universities develop in those areas where perhaps for many, many reasons that it's also difficult to develop a school, develop education. I have a great belief in the link between education and healthcare. And I know from research that good education, good healthcare education brings about good healthcare. And we must always remember that. I've been asked today to talk about faculty development, simply because I suppose of my interest in the area, but also the passion in the area. And as I said, faculty development to me is all about developing those members of the community, those members of the healthcare community that have a responsibility to develop our students of the future. As I get older and as I travel around the world, I want to be able to have, should I be unfortunate to become ill as I'm traveling, the best medical care ever. Like we all would have that, we all would share that passion and share that desire. But it's only if we can educate our healthcare practitioners that we can justify that desire. And I hope that happens. And I suppose it's all about investing in our future. So I think that the nicest definition of faculty development is the one that Sheets and Schwenk did it now 30 years ago. It's any planned activity to improve an individual's knowledge and skills in areas considered essential to performance. Some people talk about it as as almost it's linked to professional development, and I suppose it is. But in my area, which is medical education, it's a Cinderella area. It's been a Cinderella area for many years. But we need to develop it, and I'll explore a little bit of why we need to develop it in the future. We need to develop it simply because it's been taken for granted over many, many years. We assume that we all can teach. We assume that we all can distribute our knowledge to the students. We assume that they're going to learn. There are many assumptions, but I don't believe that's true. I believe that medical education should be a very specific speciality. I come from a clinical speciality, and of course, my continuing professional development in primary care is all important. But one of the problems that I see is that we do not latch the same importance to medical education. I just want to put that out there as a way of improving health of our nation, health of our globe, in fact. It's quite sad to say that we don't live in a comfortable world. This last year has showed how uncomfortable it is with the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic. We would like to live in a comfortable world where the family's at the forefront, we look after our elderly, we look after our children. But unfortunately, we live in a world and a society which is both fractured and extremely complex. I always love this cartoon on the very left of the screen, the sticking plaster cartoon. And that's how I feel our world is at the moment. It's just pulled together with very tenuous stitches and the sticking plaster. We don't really look after our elderly. We don't look after our children. Health access is not free for all. It's very difficult in some parts of the world. And all of a sudden, we've ended up with COVID-19 as well. As a world, and certainly this year, we've had to respond to new problems and quickly. We must be equipped for the new world, whatever that new world is. People keep talking about our new normal. And when I ask them what that new normal is, they say, well, we don't know yet. It's a strange world that we're moving into. Not only are they moving in now, but what the future holds, I'm not quite sure. But we have to develop people who are equipped to train our future practitioners in that new world. We need to be as dynamic as the world we live in. As educators, as me as an educator, I need to be as dynamic as the world that we live in. I constantly have to move from one situation to another. And that's the sort of type of people that we have to develop about teachers of the future, I believe. I also have a few other feelings, I suppose, and as a professional, I believe that we have a responsibility towards self-development and personal education. We shouldn't wait till somebody else tells us what to do, tells us what to think, tells us what to learn. We have an inbred responsibility, I believe, towards this self-development. If one looks at then the complexity of the world, we're now in a global community where effective professional development of personal education, though, drives effective and efficient healthcare. We have this investment in our future. The world that I live in, which is medical education now, is a very dynamic world of change. In over only about 2 to 3 centuries, we've moved from an informative world where we told the students what they needed to know to a much more formative and sharing world where we shared with the students, and sharing is caring. We looked after our students. And we now move, though, into a transformative world where not only do we have to learn and demonstrate that learning in our students, but we have to be able to compensate for this real crazy world of ours. And it's all about this transformative education where we show that we can actually do the work that we're supposed to be doing. So the world of education has changed over the 2 to 3 centuries, from just the telling to the actual saying, well, okay, you know the knowledge, now put it into practice. And as we heard already from our distinguished speakers this morning, we're moving into a technology-enhanced learning environment. We were not ready for this technology-enhanced environment. COVID-19 showed how we're not ready. We thought we would always change the virtual environment. We thought we'd be able to put all our lectures online. We thought that we'll be able to have students working from home. What COVID-19 has done is demonstrate that, in fact, we were not ready. We still are not ready. We're doing some great things already, but we haven't evaluated them, and we need to move forward. So faculty development is very important. Why were our teachers not ready for COVID-19? How are we still having problems developing online courses? Because we probably didn't have enough faculty development, not enough power, not enough thought, not enough research was given to our teachers of our students to help them develop for the new world. And to me, that's the importance of faculty development in medical education, equipping people who are ready for this new world. I just want to deviate a little bit because I also think we live in a world of educational ignorance. We've lived for many, many years where the comments are, you are a doctor, therefore you can teach. You are a dentist, therefore you can teach. You're a pharmacist, therefore you can teach. On the basis that all doctors can teach. And the big question is, can they? And research has shown that's not true. Education is not only just an art, but it's a science as well. And we have to educate our doctors in the world of education if we're going to invest in our future healthcare. We've had for too long, we've just assumed that we can teach and we've not looked at the science. So faculty development is also about looking at the science. We also live in this world of ignorance in terms of the relationship with our students. If we're honest, we give the students too much to learn. We overload them with science, much of which they never use again. And we expect them to just absorb as much as we give them. We don't even think about that absorption process. We don't even think about what we give them. Is that true? Is that relevant? Is that irrelevant? We have to think about that, and only faculty development will create that. And lastly, I think we hide our head in the sand when we get it wrong. We blame the student. We say, you stupid student, you failed. Okay, probably that's a horrible expression to use, but I think I've heard it several times before. It may not be the student that's wrong. It may be us as faculty developers, as people who teach our students. We may have got it wrong. We may be working in a historical background. It's a strange situation if you look that 50% of what we learnt 5 years ago is either wrong or out of date. The world of health sciences, the knowledge, the skills of health sciences, they double every 18 months. It's an incredible changing world. We have to get it right. We have to stay up to date, and that can only be achieved again through faculty development. I think also, not only is health professions education something special, but so are the faculty who deliver it. We fail to recognize that our faculty are essential and need to be cherished, supported, and rewarded. All too often, universities are judged on the research that they produce. Universities that forget that if they didn't have students, then there wouldn't be a university. And I'm sorry if I've become passionate about this, because I do believe it's true. I see so many universities who say, we are the best university because we've raised this amount of research money. We've raised enough students our postgraduates, who write fantastic articles in high impact journals. And aren't we good because we're good researchers? My view is that you're only good if you produce good healthcare practitioners. Research is essential. I'm not saying that it's not, but we forget that if we didn't have students, we wouldn't have a university. So how do we ensure that we all developed appropriately? Well, this talk is quite short, so I just want to give you a list of what I believe is important. I think one important thing is that we don't wish to produce a professional clones. We need to produce this diversity of health professionals with common core standards, but with an ability to adapt to a changing world. In summary, we should agree that faculty development is not a luxury. It's an imperative in every higher training establishment. Every higher training establishment should have a faculty development unit or department staffed with respected faculty developers who are academic role models. They need to do their research. They need also to do their scholarly activities, and that needs to count. It needs to have a systematic structure. I don't see structures in many universities where they say they have faculty development. It's got to be a structure just the same as any other discipline or speciality in the university has, involving planning, implementation, and evaluation. And I think the outcomes need to be realistic and measurable, task orientated. We need to, and somebody's also talked already about accreditation this morning, we need to see accreditation of faculty development as much as the accreditation of the output of the school. I think and this is where I'm got an interest in the social accountability of medical schools. I think faculty development should be tailored to suit the needs of the individuals, the disciplines, and the institution, and address the needs of the community it serves. If we're living in a very specific community, which is a resource poor, financially unstable, then our health education has got to be tailored towards that. It is no point in training people in one establishment, which is resource poor, how to be good doctors in America. That is absolutely pointless. I say that simply because I see again that so often. It should be people should be trained for the community that they serve. There should be constant evaluation, looking back into the mirror of evaluation. Are we doing well? What are we doing well? What are we doing not so well? How can we improve that? I'm a great believer that reward systems need to be in place for our faculty. I don't mean just money. I mean scholarly activity and scholarly advancement. We've recently opened an office in mainland China, where when students of faculty, i.e. faculty members who teach, are involved in courses which improve themselves in the area of teaching, they're rewarded by giving points which add to faculty development. Already we have seen many people now starting on master's course with a view to becoming a professor of medical education. And I think faculty development really should strive for collegiate collaboration across medical disciplines and, where possible, across professions and internationally. And that's why I'm so honored to be here today, because I see what comes out of these activities, and particularly today's activities, the collegiate collaboration of all the people around the world, not just in bioethics, but just because we can come together as one body that's strong, one body that can deliver the goods. We can't always deliver those goods if we're individuals, but we can as very large groups. Just to finish off this short talk, we often have this expression of learning to live. We learn to live. We learn to exist. I'd like that turned around. Let's live to learn. Let's live our lives. Let's look to our mistakes. Let's learn from our mistakes. Let's learn from our colleagues. Let us all learn together. Thank you very much for listening to this very short talk. I'm very happy to be involved in any discussions later on. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Gibbs. It was a very nice, interesting talk, short talk, but it was very informative. So I would like the audience, if anyone has any questions to Professor Gibbs. I see a question about how how we can promote lifelong learning as a motive for faculty development.
Well, thank you very much. That's not an easy question. Promotion lifelong learning is actually something I think which is related to motivated and inward feeling. But I suppose it also is not just related to faculty development. It should be a feature of life. I have a little grandson who's just 11 at the moment, and we were talking the other day about what's going to happen in his future. And he said, well, I don't know, Granddad, what I want to be in the future. And I said, well, that's not worry. That I don't worry too much about that, because you will develop as you go along. He said, but how will I develop as I go along? I said, well, you'll be exposed to different things. You'll see different things. You'll meet different people, and they will make you think. They will make you learn. They will make you think about what you want for the future. And so you can part shape your life, but environment and world activities and local activities will change your life as well. So I think it becomes as part of our inward development that we constantly think about things. We constantly explore, we explore new things. I make mistakes all the time. And I hope you would admit to you making mistakes all the time, but I learn from those mistakes. I don't worry about those mistakes. And I think that's what is lifelong learning really means. But of course, you have to recognize, as I said before, that we actually support that lifelong learning through some sort of reward system, not just money, but in recognition of that lifelong learning.
Thank you very much for your elaboration. The other question is, how can we it's a question from me actually, how can we develop faculty developers? I mean, you said that we need to have people working, yeah.
Sure, and again, I mentioned our offices. We have 3 offices, one in Georgia, in Eastern Europe, one in Moscow in the Russian Federation, one in Guangzhou in China. And what we moved into those areas to help them develop in faculty development. And it was quite clear that nobody had an idea about how we educate our educators. So I think you have to really start at the very bottom. And what we created was a cohort of interested people who we're prepared and supported by the universities to actually drive this forward. So I think you have to have faculty development of your faculty developers. And you're absolutely right when you say that. And although I don't want to say that you've got to bring in people from elsewhere, I do think you have to do that. I don't always like it, because I don't always like the colonial approach that some people take. But I think there are many people out there in this big world. And luckily, I'm president of an association that has many of those people who are prepared to come and help kickstart, be catalysts to your faculty developers. We have many courses. I don't want to promote Amy too much, because there are other associations which are just as good. But we have people around the world who now are prepared to come kickstart that process, kickstart the developers. And as I said, in China, where we've been now for 12 years, we have people there who I'm very confident can take over from my role as faculty developer there. They've started to have master's programs there, and there's already people doing PhDs in medical education. So somebody has to light that little spark. Somebody has to give that little spark to light the fire. That might come from an international colleagues, but as long as you're able to accept that, that's fine.
Professor Ali, may I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, Professor Gibbs, thank you for an excellent webinar. And your session, every time we hear it, we never get tired of listening to it. We are motivated, yes, but when you say faculty development and rewarding the faculty, here in our university, we have the system of best teacher or the good teacher award.
Yeah.
And what usually happens is it's not really the best teacher. It is the most popular teacher that gets the points.
Sure.
So are we really, when you say rewarding them, is this the way to go, that have a best teacher award and then encourage them? Or I do have another question too. I'll just finish it off.
Okay.
When you talk about developing teachers or faculty, in medical education, just like we have students, different types of students that when we say visual learners, verbal learners, or physical learners, I think we should also have we should have some sort of teaching catered to faculty who are visual teachers or verbal teachers, So I think more research is required when it comes to faculty development, because not everyone is the same. So these are the two questions that I have. I'm sorry if that's a lot.
That's okay, Mary. Questions, and thank you very much. I think both are very, very interesting in questions, and I think there are reward systems and there are reward systems, and your reward system is exactly what you say. If you ask the students and you ask faculty to vote for the best teacher, research has shown that very often people vote for the most interesting, exciting, visual sometimes teacher. What we have to think about is what we're rewarding. There's been many experiments shown that, in fact, people can actually teach, but the students don't learn. And I would want to turn the reward system into not just the teaching element, but what are the students learning? What's the real evaluation of your teaching? As part of being a good scholar in medical education, I think you've got to prove your worth. And it's not just the low Kirkpatrick level, how was it? Oh, it was fantastic. It's what are you producing at the end of the day? I would rather reward those faculty who, after 3 or 4 years of teaching, have shown that the students that they have taught have been professional, have been leaders in their field, have come out of the end of learning something from that activity. So I think we do have to think about that word reward. What do we mean by reward? And it may, as I said, it may not be a nice financial reward, but what are we rewarding? Not just the emotional nice feeling at a low level, Kirkpatrick, but much higher in terms of what are the outcomes of that teaching. Yeah, I think also brought up a very important question, about the teacher-centeredness, really, and how teachers are different. And I applaud that. I'm happy that teachers are different. And that's okay, as long as you don't have just that one style of teaching, because that means there's one style of learning as well, if they learn. So I think it's great to have a variability in your faculty. Some who are practical teachers, some who are visual teachers, some who are motivated teachers, some who use case-based learning a lot better. It's great. What that implies, however, is that when we develop faculty, just as we develop a toolbox of learning opportunities, we develop a toolbox of learning opportunities through faculty as well. So develop a group of teachers who have got the same vision, the same mission, the same passion, but just have to apply that in a different way. I don't see anything wrong with that. I think it's great if you can do that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Dr. Prosali, can I just add here, Trevor, what we've seen, I mean, this is, of course, the inauguration of the Bioethics Center. So I wanted to bring here that we've been doing the faculty development, a big program. We've done about 4,000 faculty. We've been training them because we found with the reformed, vertically integrated curriculum, the the bioethics is part of medical education, and it goes along seamlessly from the beginning to the end. And
Sure.
what we see, and from evidence we have, is that teaching the medical science is marginally different from teaching the humanities, as you would, which has less scientific certainty. And so we've actually developed technologies and methodologies to bring that the medical humanity with less scientific certainty into the teaching skills of the teachers who already are teaching with scientific certainty. And that is, and in fact, that's something that we're going to do with you, with Amy, because I'm delighted that Trevor and Professor Harden are both a part of our Education Council members. And so we're looking at, in fact, you've just said this, and I just wanted, you spoke about China and where Amy is. We will hopefully have you in the world's largest medical education in the world, which is the Indian program with 600 schools. And we have with us one of the panel members, Dr. Professor Vet Prakash, who developed for 30 years the whole medical education in that part of the world. And I think we shall be looking together. But anyhow, it is very interesting, Trevor, and thank you for that a wonderful exposition into this very important area of faculty development.
Okay, just one thing that I think you brought up very clearly is that as faculty developers, we have great responsibility to develop our faculty who then develop curricula. And I think it's important that we recognize that the way that we encourage the students to learn has changed. And we've had this conversation many times before. You talked about bioethics. One of the issues for bioethics to me is that it's not a standalone course. You may have a 2 weeks introduction to bioethics, but I think bioethics is something that spreads like a golden thread through the curriculum, through integration. And I can't impress on people that any more than I already do. So I often see a 2 weeks course on bioethics in 3rd year of medical school, done, finished, all gone, take an exam, finish. No, ethics is much more of a golden thread that threads through the whole of the curriculum, whether it's through the surgical, the pediatrics, the gynecology, the geriatrics, the genetics. It's something that should be there all the time.
That's the vertically integrated. That's what which was present at the World Federation of Medical Education. Exactly what you're saying, the reformed method where it's integrated vertically into every subject. So you're not teaching ethics, but ethical medicine or ethical obstetrics and so forth. So you're absolutely right.
I think also there's a lovely message here from Dr. Mustafa about the students. I think one of the things that we have to change is our attitude to students now. As faculty members, we have to think of students as our co-learners. We're learning together. You know, people often talk about opening the door to education. Yes, we need to open that door to their learning, but we don't just kick them through it. We actually walk them through it. We guide them through it, maybe even go through the door with them. Our students are our partners now in education, rather than people that we do something to. I learn a lot from my students. They know that. They actually teach me a lot. And that's the way it should be. It's a sharing approach rather than a doing approach.
We call them we call them co-learners. That's in the education department. They're we call them co-learners.
Yeah.
There are a lot of other questions. I don't know how many questions can we take, but Dr. Nazdar had a question. Can you, Dr. Nazdar, ask your question directly to Professor Gibbs?
Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be here, Professor Gibbs. I was one of your students in ESME course. I have a comment and a question. The comment is about the integration of bioethics. I want to just declare here that in Hawler Medical University, with Dr. Tara and Prof. Ali, we worked on introduction of bioethics as an integration, a vertical and horizontal integration through the curriculum. And now we are integrated bioethics in the first, second, and third year, and we are planning to integrate it also in the clinical years. This is my comment. Regarding the question, in the COVID era, you know that faculty development is a necessity for every faculty member who teach in the medical schools. The question is how we can modify the faculty development, especially the hands-on workshop in this digital learning platforms.
Yeah, it's lovely to hear about your integration. I'm pleased you're doing that, and it'd be nice to hear how that succeeds. I think faculty development has suffered a little bit during COVID-19 because faculty have all of a sudden been exposed to new types of learning. And as I said right at the beginning, what happened for many years is that we knew we were going to at one point increase our online learning, but we never really tackled that, I don't think, very well. And so it was forced upon us. And some people have done it well, some people have not done it well. In terms of faculty development, we can still do it online. In fact, all my courses this year have been online. All my ESME courses are being online. It's difficult as well. You know, I think we forget sometimes that we are social animals. We live to talk to each other. We live to engage with each other. And I think one of the things that is being difficult during online development, whether it's online for the students, online for faculty, online for postgraduate education, we're missing, very seriously missing, that face-to-face interactivity that brings out the best of us, really. And the engagement, the ability to judge a student, whether they know, thinking, you know, when you're working with a group of students, you can look into their faces, you look in their eyes, and you know that some students are really not getting what you're talking about. That's not possible with online, you know, particularly if you're doing a large amount of online teaching. So I think there is ability for online faculty development, but I think it's not a big substitute for face-to-face teaching and learning. And I think what will happen, please God, over the next year is that as we get rid of some of the COVID-19 problems, that we go back to at least having some part of our education as face-to-face. And that's not just faculty development, I suppose. One of the problems that we've also had is clinical teaching during this difficult time. And again, we have to recognize that some clinical teaching might be good online, but in fact, it's not a complete substitute for what we do face-to-face. So hopefully I've answered your question, which is basically we can do online faculty development. It's difficult. We just need to recognize what we can't do as much as what we can do.
Yes, thank you.
I would like to ask our panelists, Professor Thornton or Professor Mishra, or Professor Amnolla, if they have any comments or questions.
Well, I'm Dr. Mishra.
Yes, Professor Mishra.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just to brief, in the Indian context, in terms of the initiative that Dr. Russell sir was referring to, Professor Trevor, we have been able to integrate bioethics across the undergraduate medical curriculum.
Great.
Academic Council of the Medical Council of India, and I had the fortune of heading it. So we have structured it in its entirety, in all the 4 phases, including identification of the competencies in the domain of attitude, bioethics, and also for that matter, communication, which we have put across as ATCOM module. And it has been structured into 4 phases linked with the assessment, modalities of teaching, the various modular approaches which are required to be undertaken, including the horizontal and vertical integration that is required to be put across into the entire frame. The most important aspect which you very rightly highlighted is not the structuring of it, but the faculty to be capable of developing this dimension which has been added. We invoked a complete national faculty development program. And again, I had the fortune of heading that program on behalf of the Medical Council of India as a regulatory body. And we created an entire the medical education units in various medical colleges which were leading. We got them converted into Department of Medical Education, and they turned out to be the repositories of the faculty development program. And therefore, today I have got 20 nodal centers in the country to which the medical schools are affiliated, and structured faculty development program, including orientation on handling the ATCOM module in the curriculum, has been worked out. And it's almost last 10 years that we have been able to undertake it. And today I can vouch with all humility that nearly 65,000 full-time faculty members across the medical colleges in the country, they have been oriented and have been certified, whereby we can say that we have been able to create a desired nucleus practically in every medical school for the purpose of handling the program. And the first phase of the program already stands launched from the academic year 2019-20, and things are in progressive stage. So, I mean, this is a very huge experimentation which we tried to work out. And I'm really grateful to Dr. Russell for putting this genuine inspiration in my mind. And I am very happy to share with you that the curriculum support program committees that have been constituted in each of the medical schools, they have really done a good job, and a reasonable degree of successful launch and implementation of the same seems to be in progress. Although you are aware that, as Dr. Russell was referring to, we are more than 600 medical schools in the country. It was a huge experimentation, but with the nature of work and the nature of the preparedness in terms of the faculty development, which we worked out in last 10 years for the purposes of handling of the same, even prior to the launch of it, I think it is paying us reasonable dividends, and we have been able to, I can submit that we have been able to prepare reasonably appropriate leveraging field for the same, and we look forward to something very substantial on this count in the new batches of trained learners that we are putting across through medical schools in the country. And therefore, faculty, the importance of faculty development program in handling all these change incorporations which are so vital turns out to be the most cardinal factor and most significant factor whereby the capacity building for handling of it is necessary. In spite of the fact, I agree, as Dr. Mary was trying to put across, there will be differentiations and there will be demarcations, but a leveraging field where we will be in a position to optimize a particular essence of operation, I think turns out to be a very vital factor. And I think in all humility, we stand subscribed to the importance of the faculty development program and the gains in realistic sense that can be generated out of it. I can say that India has really tasted the same in a big way. Thank you.
I think that's, I just want to say well done and thank you. And I was fascinated by, as you talked there about that explosion, if I may call it that. I don't like the word that much, but the explosion of faculty development is great. And I think one of the things that we now have to do, because as I said, teaching and learning and education is not just an art, it's a science, is to begin to measure the evaluation of that, to begin to measure the effect of that on the healthcare of the population, because I'm pretty sure that there'll be a positive correlation within there.
Thank you.
Professor Thornton, could you have any questions or comments about?
Can't hear.
Yeah, could you unmute your, I will do it, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. From my perspective on the U.S. is that we've tried to implement many of the things Professor Gibbs talks about. Unfortunately, we sometimes become so specialized it doesn't get disseminated to all the faculty. I think where we lag behind is our clinical teaching. The basic science teachings improve, but when you look at medical schools, the bulk of the time the students spend with trained educators is with the basic science, preclinical sciences. I've had various roles for teaching in administration and simplified it down to a rule that I think we needed to train students to become physicians that we want to hire and work with. Their specific grades aren't so important to us as what they can, the skill set and the values and the character that they have. I think what's been built in that's been really good is to have the quality improvement assessments as part of people's self-education. What I teach, what I learn, does it have an impact on patients? I think we're just beginning to learn how to do this at an individual practice level and a systems level. So I'm very encouraged by that.
I think that's an actual wonderful way of doing that. One of the things that we tried to do in the UK and has seemed to have worked is that anyone who teaches the students cannot teach the students unless they've been on at least a basic medical education course. So they actually understand some of the aspects of teaching and learning. It seems to have worked, and it's worked in a lot of the health professions as well. It's hard because then you have to have faculty development programs for everyone or clinical teaching programs for everyone. But it seems to have worked somehow.
Yes, sir. Professor Amanullah, do you have any comments? No, nothing. Professor?
Yeah, you're unmuted.
Okay, is it clear now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a terrific lecture, Professor Gibbs. I really enjoyed it. There are a few really relevant issues that come up here. And one of them is that as much as we can teach, people should be willing to learn. If you have a closed mind, there's very little you can do to inspire or get people to learn. But there is another aspect of this whole thing. There's a very colonial perspective in terms of how we, within quotes, enforce learning. So for example, in India, there's this notion of learning on the go, basically the Shantiniketan model, you know, models wherein you sit in the open, you sit with nature and you learn. You know, and it's interesting with COVID, how enclosed spaces are now being seen as taboo. You should actually be in open spaces and things like that. Obviously, we can't do it in Canada with the winters we have, but you need to have an open mind. The second thing is to be sensitive to the needs of learning. We often ignore, for example, the native population or nations that have occupied other nations. How do we inspire learning? By getting people to learn and ask critical questions. Your faculty is only as good as they can inspire people to think. And we as human beings have increasingly lost the ability to think in an original way. It's a fallacy. And it's a problem because we have this notion that somehow I am a good teacher because I have so many teachers who like me. The point that Mary was making, the popularity thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing because there's something this teacher does that makes students like them. It's not bad. The problem is we often get very intimidated or scared when there's a teacher who's better than us. It's a very human trait that we feel scared. The point you made is terrific, Professor Gibbs, and I really liked it because you are right. We learn on the go. And so what we did in Canada a few years ago is we created the competency by design as a method of learning. Competency by design has really taken off in a big way because we actually train individuals not based on just the theoretical framework by which, you know, obviously you have to pass exams and things like that, but it becomes a fundamental basis for which we are now evaluating people as to how, within quotes, competent they are, not just scholarly. I won't take much more time, but I've really thoroughly enjoyed your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. And I can't support you even. I really like those last comments that you make. It's not about making, if we talk about making a student, it's not about making a student who knows everything. In this real world of ours, it's this competency that they have to have. And in now, we've included these what's called EPAs, entrustable professional activities. Can they do the job that they're supposed to be doing? And it's no point in graduating people who know the knowledge and understand the skills, but actually can't transfer those into the real world. It's fit for purpose and fit for practice, but it's got to be ready for the real world. And I can't enhance what you said more than that. It's very, very important that we look towards people who can deliver, as opposed to people who perhaps think they know they can deliver.
Unmute myself. Thank you very much, Professor Gibbs, for all the words and the thoughts that you shared with us. I think we will finish this part of our webinar, and I will ask now Professor Russell Souza to deliver his speech about corona vaccine trials, ethical dilemmas considered. Please, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Ali. I'm just getting this, not getting, for what reasons, I'm not able to get this to full. What I'm trying to do is, I'm not able to get
You
this.
have to go to full screen now.
Yeah, I'm trying to do it. It's not
Full screen.
Yeah, I'm pressing that, but for some reason
It's above also. No.
Yeah?
Dr. Russell, just look above. You probably above your screen too.
Yeah,
We're not able to hear you.
You're not able to hear me? No?
Yeah, now good. Just go above. Just go above your screen. There is like a rectangle sign for full screen.
I don't know. I usually go down, and I'm not able to get that. I'm pressing it.
Yeah, we can't see it below. Can you see it below?
Yeah, it's below. I can see it below, but I'm not able to get this. Anyway, I might have to go in like this. Is it visible?
Can you come? It's visible, but can you see on top of your bar another icon similar to the one below?
No, I can't see anything on top.
You can't see it?
No, I'm trying to animation transist. For some reason, I'm not able to get this. Okay, look, I'm not going to be able. I'm not sure why it's not moving into. And no.
Is it moving to the next slide?
Yeah, it's moved. No. Again, it's not somehow not.
You're clicking multiple times, Dr. Russell.
So maybe you have too many windows open, probably. Do you have many open windows?
No, I don't.
You're also freezing. I don't know whether you're.
Yes.
Could you switch off your camera then? Maybe it will help.
I'm not able to bring it into the full. You see, it says slideshow. Anyway, I probably have to do it with this like this. I'm not able to get it to full screen. Okay, can you see this? Can you see the same screen?
Yeah, it's okay. It's all right.
Okay, I'm sorry about this. Look, I'm going to do my thank you, Professor Ali. What I'm going to do is to sorry. what I'm going to do is give you some points on two important areas that we are dealing with. And I'm going to then ask our panelists to come in and discuss this further. So that's what I'm doing. We moved from medical education now to this important area of vaccines and the ethical issues or dilemmas that we are facing. As you all know, to reduce the global burden of this pandemic, there's an urgent need and to develop a safe vaccine. We're all talking about it. The TV and America's talking about it, every part of the world. So vaccine development usually takes many years to go through different phases. And certainly to hasten this vaccine development in the final stages, or what's the stage 3, there are suggestions that this should be replaced with a human challenge trial. What does this mean? Volunteers would be intentionally infected with the virus to see how this vaccine candidate works. So in effect, to intently infect a healthy human being with a potentially deadly virus is contrary to the highest ethical standards in medical research. Okay? Experts in infectious disease and public health warn us that this pandemic is going to be with us for a long time unless we have a vaccine, and that too soon. So how soon can we achieve this goal? The answer largely depends on what strategies the researchers are willing to adopt. And you look at those estimates, how long it will take for it to come to the market. At the shortest, it's 12 to 18 months, but certainly longer. So one potential strategy is to conduct a human challenge trial. Now, what's this about? The history. Human challenge trials have been done for more than 2 centuries, and some continue today for influenza, dengue, cholera, and other infectious diseases. Challenge trials have established, in fact, the foundational elements of our very understanding of the common cold and flu. And for all of you might remember, Fred Hayden, who better known for the Tamiflu, was developed using the challenge studies. And more recently, malaria, cholera, typhoid have been approved, and this would likely have not been possible without challenge trials. So what actually happens is researchers give an experimental vaccine candidate to a healthy volunteer and then test or challenge the vaccine by purposefully infecting these volunteers with a strain of the disease to test the vaccine's efficacy. In conventional vaccine trials, researchers administer a placebo, or what we call experimental vaccine and a placebo, to thousands of volunteers and then tens of thousands, and wait for nature to do the work, a process that takes normally years. But now, in the current situation, a growing number are calling on researchers to employ human challenge strategy. But of course, this has caused a heated debate about the very ethics of such research. Now let's look at the proponents to human challenge trial studies. The public health imperative save most lives. They involve fewer research participants than standard research methods. They require fewer volunteers and indeed considerably cheaper to carry out. And they are not tethered to the other natural infection rate, and therefore accelerate the progress and can determine effectiveness more rapidly, or efficaciousness. And that's what we're all looking for. Is that right? So this has come into the picture. And what about the opposing ethical perspective? They might put volunteers at a higher risk than conventional vaccine trials. Leading principles of research ethics is minimize risk to research participants. Then exposing volunteers to the virus would certainly be unethical. Importantly, since there is no accepted treatment, what we call a rescue treatment, and which is conventionally a prerequisite requisite for or to have an accepted treatment. Now, the WHO and indeed the National Institutes of Health have supported human challenge studies in the past. And of course, I just said that's made some of these vaccines available. However, a long-standing caveat in the use of human challenge research method is the prerequisite that there exists an accepted treatment for the disease under study. This requirement is currently not met in the case of COVID-19. But why did this become a debatable issue? On the 6th of May, the WHO issued a document called Key Criteria for Ethical Acceptability of Human Challenge Studies in COVID-19. And it states here specifically that there is a conscientious among ethicists who they call together, who have reflected upon human challenge studies that intentionally infect the research participant, and this can be ethically acceptable. Of course, the WHO lists an ethical criteria of 8 areas that need to be looked, and of course, they do not mention the requirement that there be accepted treatment for the disease. And even to look at the important, in those 8 criteria, the second criteria mentions potential benefits and risks should be compared with other feasible study designs. Risks should be minimized. However, if you really compare this standard treatment, which is the placebo-controlled in phase 3, certainly the risks here are in challenge studies would appear considerably greater because, of course, in the other way, the standard vaccine study, some victims may never see the disease under study. And the other important factors that have come out here is that selection of low-risk participants, reducing numbers, these are the 3, reducing numbers of participants where feasible, and initial challenge conducted one by one with titration carefully of the virus dose. While we look at this now, 2 strategies reduce the overall risk to the group of enrolled participants taken as a whole, but only the 3rd criteria involves the risk to an individual who is infected with a pathogen that causes serious illness, and in fact, it can be fatal. Now, what makes this more complex is on the 7th of May, this is 6th, the WHO puts this out. On the 7th of May, we have the AVAC, the AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition. They acknowledge that the WHO statement articulated very important criteria for this human challenge study, but they have now said, until there's an approved treatment, a challenge trial with a potentially fatal and as yet untreatable pathogen is unacceptable. So we are now, and you are all aware that this has been accepted, and we are seeing now human challenge trials taking place in many, including the Oxford trial and so forth. So the questions here, ethical issues that come up, can volunteers be sufficiently well informed of the risks? When we ask young, healthy people to participate in these trials and then allow them to do so, is asking and then allowing them to do something that could harm both them and their loved ones in ways that they cannot possibly be expected to grasp, and might change them in the ways that they would change their willingness to be involved. And if some of them can grasp these things, how do we possibly tell which of these people really are able to grasp? So one issue has come up about informed consent. The question suggests that there's a lot of interest in participating in this challenge. The USA has got 35,000 volunteers ready to take on this challenge studies, which have already started. But there is no way of knowing how well informed these individuals are about the risks and benefits of participating, or even whether they are indeed at risk. Now, the usual practice in medical research and healthy human subjects is to pay them for the participation, and at times like this, significantly. So that's one issue that comes up, the informed consent. And the next issue is around social justice. From the standard practice, we know that it's certainly the monetary payment will be considerable to serve as an inducement to enroll. As you know, the AstraZeneca-Oxford trial, they moved to human challenge, is £4,000 per patient. What is the likely result? The result is that a disproportionate number of volunteers would come, certainly, most likely, from the low-income brackets. Many people who lost their jobs and in this pandemic are in dire circumstances. Certainly in the Western world, USA, and certainly we know when we talk about this group of volunteers, it is very likely they're going to come from the lower socio-economic members of society, of that community. And of course, when we look at that, with the statistics, we know that it also involves the racial and ethnic minorities. This then raises a very serious question on social justice. So these are some of the areas that we put. So we end up with the potential ethical dilemma. Is it permissible to intentionally inflict serious harm on a few for the possible benefit of many? Second one is, with the several vaccines already in the pipeline, as you're all aware, phase 3 is going on. In the current state, a disproportionate number of minorities and poor people are likely to enroll. And of course, a justifiable rush to begin the challenge trials because we have a grave disease lacking effective treatment. Is this ethically justifiable to do this? These are the questions that come up with the current human challenge trial. And I've put this forward, and we're going to discuss what we think could be the way out. The next issue here that's come up in this vaccine research or trials is the ethics of placebo-controlled phase 3 clinical trials. We've known that. We've heard in the last few days of Pfizer's one, the Moderna, and so forth. So this is now another ethical issue that's come into discussion. Multiple candidate vaccines for coronavirus are being evaluated scientifically in a process of unprecedented speed, and thousands of individuals around the world have volunteered to participate in the placebo-controlled phase 3 clinical trials. When one of these candidate vaccines is proved to be safe and effective, and then goes on to receive an emergency use authorization by the FDA or the equivalent in Europe or the TGA in Australia, will it continue to be ethical to enroll participants in other coronavirus trials that randomize half of them to placebo? Because there are over 100 candidates which are still in the process of phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So this causes another dilemma. Recent statements in the news, and indeed by ethicists, have claimed that it would be unethical to randomize anyone to a placebo control in a corona vaccine trial once a vaccine is proven effective. We now hear that 95, 90%, and so forth are effective, and we are in the process of getting this emergency authorization. So we're now faced with, what about the remaining candidates? Do we need it? How do we go forth? And a question here is placebo control and the principle of equipoise. The use of placebo controls in candidate vaccine trials in the face of proven effective vaccine for a given disease is unethical. Why? Because it violates the ethical principle of equipoise held to be fundamental norm for clinical trials. Under this principle, the equipoise principle, no patient should be randomized to a treatment or control intervention in a clinical trial that is known to be inferior to standard medical care. And clinical trials contrary to equipoise are alleged to violate the right of the patients to medical care, and two, the duty of care owed by the clinicians. Now, this is from an ethical perspective. The regulatory authority may change it and say we're looking at a inferiority study and so forth. So these are the questions that are come up now in terms of the placebo controlled studies. Now, we see here equipoise in the dilemma of randomized clinical trials. Franklin Miller et al. In the New England Journal, you would see they talk of first and foremost, clinical equipoise or uncertainty about which treatment is best for a patient is widely viewed as an essential for an ethical randomized controlled trial. But Franklin and Miller and team published in the New England Journal, they argue that clinical trials that violate equipoise are indeed ethical and indeed necessary to inform societal decisions about drug approval and coverage. So we move then trying to look at this dilemma that we face now when we talk of the placebo-controlled studies. So we talk of equipoise and the ethics of clinical research. The most general problem with equipoise is that it conflates the ethics of clinical research with the ethics of medical care. Ethical standards that govern medical care do not necessarily govern clinical trials. However, even if we talk of equipoise as a valid norm for clinical research, one wonders whether it doesn't pertain to the coronavirus vaccine field trials currently underway or planned. And participants in these vaccine trials are indeed healthy volunteers, not sick patients seeking treatment in the context of a clinical trial. And therefore, the healthcare professionals who administer candidate vaccines within the clinical trial are indeed functioning as researchers, not as clinicians providing standard treatment. So this is some way of looking at it. So the placebo-controlled, when we look at it from this perspective and we bring in what some of the other experts in the field, we talk about placebo control might indeed not violate equipoise, which has been the question that's now being asked to whether we could continue to do the placebo controlled studies once we have the, similar to the Pfizer or to the Moderna and so forth that are coming forth. So randomizing trial patients to placebo when a proven effective vaccine exists does not violate equipoise or the right to medical care. Indeed, nor are the trial patients in this situation really denied of proper proven effective vaccine when they volunteer and give informed consent to participate in this trial, in the placebo-controlled trials. Now, you may argue we might look at access. We know that these vaccines are have been demonstrated to be safe, effective, and in order to receive that, it's going to take a considerable period of time before it becomes available to most people. Of course, there will. This means that insofar as the trial patients participants are unable to access this vaccine outside the research setting, they will not be made worse off by this trial participation, because they may be better off in the view that 50% have a chance of receiving a potential effective vaccine. And indeed, those individuals who do have access need not come to a research setting, may indeed opt to go directly and get the vaccines. The other important aspect that has come up in this discussion is the right to medical care. The right to medical care, or indeed here more specifically, the right to receive an effective vaccine, like nearly all this right, like all other rights, is not indeed absolute or inalienable. It's not an inalienable right. That right can be waived autonomously by individuals giving informed consent to participate in clinical trials, which randomize them to either experimental intervention or placebo. So this is the reason why, on one side, people like in the New England Journal argue that the equipoise principle is flawed, as it does not recognize that the right to medical care can be validly waived. Once a proven effective vaccine for corona is developed, it would be adequate to disclose the prospective participants in this placebo-controlled coronavirus trial, to inform them about this fact and the possibility that they might be able to get access to vaccine outside the context of research. And the other important area that we need to consider, or it has come up, is societal benefit. What role does this have? Central to research ethics are the potential societal benefits from the knowledge to be gained from rigorous clinical research. Therefore, continued socially valuable placebo-controlled vaccine trials in the face of a proven effective coronavirus vaccine adequately protect subjects when they are designed, conducted in accordance with the standards of scientific validity, and the past participants provide informed consent. That informed consent process affords these individuals the opportunity to decide, do they want to contribute to ethically sound clinical research with important, significant potential to contribute to population health? That comes up here. And in this, and so we look at, finally, in conclusion, the most rigorous way to evaluate vaccines is by the means of placebo-controlled trials. And if, as is being stated, to put a stop to these placebo-controlled vaccine trials, once a single vaccine has been proven effective, we believe that would be detrimental to population health and indeed to societal benefit. Now, I've put forward two important dilemmas that are being discussed and being faced at the moment in this very important area of clinical trials for the vaccines, the phase 3 vaccine trials. And I put forth the issue, the dilemma we face in terms of human challenge trials. And now, as we develop candidates that are now promising to be effective, 95% effective, we're now faced with the dilemma, can we go on? What about the future? What about further? Do we stop with this? And that's the questions that are, that's some of the issues that are coming up. So I put this forward here for all of you to consider, and I'll be happy to take this further for discussion with a very distinguished panel of that we have brought together here for this meeting. So I'm going to open this now to Professor Ali to get our panelists. As you know, this is a dilemma we are facing, and I wouldn't think there's a right and wrong answer, but we have to look at how best and what are the other issues that we can be contributing to the ultimate outcomes. We know that human challenge trials have already started and going on at the moment. Australia is also involved in it, in some of those studies. We know now that two very promising candidates have come out and probably more if you take the Sputnik and the other Sinovacs and so forth from China. But even from these two, how do could we go forward? Do we say to give a placebo-controlled study? So these are very important areas, but I thought we will we'll open this now to our distinguished panelists to come up with some ways that we could take this further. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Russell, for such a wonderful speech about the ethical dilemmas. Indeed, a lot of regarding COVID-19 and especially what is related to the vaccine part of it. So I will ask the panelists if they have any questions or comments to share with us. Professor Mary.
Thank you, Professor Russell, for the, I just want to mention a few things. You're right about, the human challenge, and is it really ethical to infect a volunteer with a live virus? And we do not have, the issue here is with the other vaccines, always for the disease, there was always a treatment. But for this COVID-19, we don't have a treatment. And we are infecting the volunteers with this virus, and we don't know what the consequences. There has been reports regarding, neurological problems, which now they're saying it's not really confirmed. But is this ethical at all? And the other issue is the question of inducement, that you're giving £4,000 to take part as a volunteer in this study. You're right in saying that, people from below socioeconomic class at this time, when many of them don't have jobs, they've lost their livelihood, they may, prefer taking part in trials where they can, get money, and very few actually may be actually doing it for altruistic purpose. So these are some of the issues and the questions of using a placebo. And like you said, for a full vaccine to come out, the whole trial, that's phase 1, 2, 3, and then post-trial access, all that takes time. But we have hastened the process. So are we really talking about a race to get the first vaccine out in terms of economy for the country? So these are the issues. And just to tell you something about India and the vaccines. Now, Pfizer has, their vaccine has, they have said it is 90% efficacious. But that vaccine requires a storage of -70 and to -80 degrees, which is not possible in, underdeveloping and developing countries. And the shelf life of that vaccine is 24 hours. So probably that vaccine is not effective for a country like India. Then Moderna has now released their results saying that it is 94.5% efficacious, or effective. Now that can be stored at and the shelf life for that is 3 days. But the problem is a single dose of vaccine is $37, just one dose. And these vaccines may require more than one dose. So when it comes, India has never paid so much of money for a vaccine. The maximum they have paid for a dose for any vaccination, any disease, is $3. So that is 10 times more the money that they have to spend if they have to give it to the entire population. Now, the only vaccine right now which is looking promising for India is the Oxford AstraZeneca, which will take time. Now, that can be stored at 2 to 8 degrees in an ordinary refrigerator. So probably that is the vaccine we're looking into. But the problem now is, my understanding is India has already put in place who are the priority people who are going to be given the vaccines. So they have identified four groups of people. First and foremost, it'll be the health professionals who are going to receive the vaccine. This is a list of priority. The second will be the armed forces and the police. The third will be all above 50 years. And the fourth will be 50, those below 50 years, but have some sort of comorbidity. Now, to make it available to everyone, when you're saying health professionals, who are the health professionals? Is it only doctors or nurses? Or is it everyone? Can we afford to give everyone? So this is the problem now we are going to face if we are going to endorse the vaccine and that everyone should take it. And moreover, we are talking about things like 60% of our people in India, we are a country of 1.32 billion people, 3.1 billion people, with 60 to 70% living in the rural areas. How do we ensure this cold chain and make sure that all our people, even in the citizens in the rural areas, get it? So there are many issues that when it comes to vaccine, we're going to open a Pandora's box. It is not just getting the vaccine out. It is who's going to get the vaccine and how you're going to maintain the, the cold chain, and how are you going to differentiate people now based on vaccines? Are the politicians going to get the vaccines first? These are the things that we have to look into. Yes, there are issues just based on the challenges, that is the challenge trial. But once it is out, it's going to be, we're going to see even much more ethical issues. And that is where we are heading right now.
Yes,
so that
you're
is
right.
the perspective from the Indian side.
I think that you're absolutely right. And we come to another phase when we're now focusing on the research part. Then comes the distributive justice, the scaling up, and so many things. But we're now facing right at the start of efficacy studies, trials to get. And as you rightly said, if that is 90% and it's not, so there's every reason why we need to have more studies going on. And so the question then coming is placebo, is that equipoise? It challenges the requirement or the principle of equipoise, and that's why I brought that. And you got one group. But interestingly, these human challenge trials, which you rightly put, infecting without not only not having an effective
known treatment.
But we also, which has come out from the NIH, is that we do not know the long-term consequences of this.
Yes.
And so that's it. But to make it more complex, the WHO has put out that it's ethical, and you have the other council, AIDS Council, said it's not fully ethical. So this is the dilemma that we face. But all along now, it has already started. The AstraZeneca has gone into, they moved to human challenge trials and so forth. So that's very important. We'll ask, I think, from USA and Canada, where they're actually using and doing
another thing about the vaccine, another thing, Dr. Russell, about the vaccine is many of these vaccines are below 60 years. So it has not been tried. Some of the vaccines, what we're talking about, Pfizer and all, has not been tried after, for population after 60 and very young too.
That's correct.
So that is also an issue now. Yeah. And if countries are going to make vaccination mandatory to enter a particular country, then we have issues of, consent and issues of autonomy coming in. Whether if I don't want to take a vaccine and I want to go to Singapore, and they insist on giving me a vaccine, then what do you do at that stage? So there are many issues that we are going to deal with. Thank you.
This is at the point of delivery, right?
Yeah.
What about the point of creation of the vaccine, right? There's still so many questions that we really haven't even remotely addressed. And I think we should never forget what happened in Germany. And there was a gentleman of Jewish extraction, and his leg was broken repeatedly at the same spot to see how many times it would heal. To the researchers there, it was the right thing to do because it was for the larger good. And indeed, it may have been. But where was the consent? And the interesting thing is the notion at that point in time was they knew that this individual's body and mind represented them as well. So we could test on this person. But ethics flew through the window because what I call now COVID coercion. So we live in a time now where we all think, everybody else is dying, we need to get the vaccine. But the truth is, like you said, Mary, number one is inducement. The second thing is this very newish mode of altruism where you can get pushed into seeming like you're doing what's altruistic, but you're not being altruistic. Because like Russell said, forget equipoise, even the whole notion of informed consent. We often forget that people, when they come to the doctor's office, you're overawed by everything going on. And it becomes really scary at that point in time. I just wanted to add this because trial of the vaccine is one thing, but even creation, at the point of creation, there are so many things that need to be addressed.
Joe, what's your...
Professor Matthew brought up the point about who's actually participating in the trials may be different from who gets the vaccine. And so that's a concern. To take a counterpoint, I can see in the US, some people would argue that we do have treatment, maybe not effective treatment, maybe not definitive treatment, but they would argue that we do have treatment for the illness. When you're trying to select volunteers, the notion of inducement is a concern. I participated in studies where we were looking for experimental treatments for cocaine addiction, and you're paying cocaine addicts to come into a program to be infused with cocaine. So that you worry about the inducements there. Also, for informed consent, matters of what's the probability of the person's exposure to the virus. So healthcare workers might be more inclined and better positioned to consent to participate, but they would need a greater reimbursement for the cost of participation because they'd have to take time off from work during their exposure. As far as I know, there's not any sliding scale or looking at the needs of the volunteers. So they may have equality, but not equity. In terms of the origin of the vaccine, I'm Catholic, and there's a substantial population of people who are called anti-vaxxers who are concerned, did the vaccine originate from an aborted fetus? I don't know the details in there, but that's an issue that's already hotly debated. And then when we get to force vaccines, as a psychiatrist, I work about use of force of treatments daily, and we look for alternatives. It would be a fundamental violation of human dignity to force a vaccine on someone, to just say you have to have and physically use force to administer the vaccine. Usually we look at education and other types of alternatives, but it's not an emergency where you'd have to force people to get vaccinated. So it covers a wide range of topics.
Well,
Professor Thornton, actually, when you certain universities in US, when you go there for a training, they insist that you take the flu vaccine. So you can't, yeah. So probably this could, this COVID vaccine will probably end up something like this.
Well, there's difference between force and coercion, and so with flu vaccine, the choice up until this year was you could take the vaccine or you could wear a mask. I hear rumors this year that you have to take the vaccine for flu, but I don't know how enforceable that is.
But we have the same thing.
But I did have to take the Tamiflu to because the university would not accept my entry without taking the Tamiflu vaccine. So I had to prove that I had enough antibodies. I had to show the vaccine vial and things like that. So
for condition of hiring, that's what I mean by coercion. So yeah, if you want to keep your job, they may get to that. But it's easier to prevent people from starting to work than it is to take current employees and terminate them.
And frankly speaking, Mary, there are different vaccination schedules which are there applicable even in operation, even in the present circumstances. Yeah, I have a very fundamental question to put to, rather opinion to put to Professor Russell. Professor Russell, we all started from the Nuremberg trial.
Yes.
And we think that the civilized mankind has walked a sufficient distance. I mean, I'm really sorry to state that in the present situation, one gets tempted to conclude, really, have we come out of Nuremberg trial in the real sense or not? What exactly is sacrificial in the name of public good is $1 million question, which I think we need to resolve before we undertake any proposition of any defense for any rhyme or reason. Whether an individual is entitled to be put across as a sacrificial goat in the form of a guinea pig in the name of public good is a material question. All other things appear subservient to me. Otherwise, I always feel jittery in my mind that the lessons that we supposed to learn out of Nuremberg trials, have they gone waste, is something which agitates my mind.
Well, that certainly is true from what you're saying. How do we, how do we qualitative and quantitatively say what is public good, isn't it? That's always and that comes to the harm principle, where we apply the Mills harm principle and so forth. Well, let's say. But I think, Dr. Mary, one thing is, if you go to Africa or South America, I cannot come back to Australia without having a certificate of the yellow fever vaccine.
I'm saying yellow fever vaccination is a must.
Yes. So I don't see, I would expect that they will not say it's mandatory, but if you have to get on a plane, they may ask you to show this vaccine, or you choose not to go. So that's the cohesion. That's what Joe was talking about. Anyhow, that's interesting. But I think what we've looked here is at many issues that are coming up with vaccine. But today, the talk and everything is about the vaccine, because that's the hope we are having and so forth, and billions of dollars. But the other thing that you said is, I also believe that much of this vaccine might be also the impetus to the economy of whichever country the bringing in the most successful vaccine might be in this current times of recession and so forth. This might be the lining in the cloud for that economy. So that's why so many billions are being put into this, and the race is there, and we're yet to see what's going to happen in the end here. Any other questions, Dr. Ali, Professor Ali? If there are questions, we'll be happy to take that before we, if there are any questions, we'll be happy to answer that. It is a difficult, it is a very challenging time. And I thought this was balancing medical education on one side, which is of course bioethics and medical education. And on this side, we spoke on ethics and research. In the current situation, the current times that the world is facing.
Well, cannot see any other questions apart from, let's say, well, it's a technical question. These vaccines, they are effective for how long? 6 months, 1 year? Well, I don't know.
we haven't yet. We haven't yet. They haven't. I don't think they have also found that.
We'll take it. We'll take it and see how long. So,
well, we're not sure, isn't it? You were talking about today. I saw that the Moderna one says older people, but then I saw that Pfizer has also said that it will. It is. They've got some percentage of older, or we call people above 60, who also they believe it could be. But all this, of course,
many of the vaccines haven't. Many of the vaccines haven't really included children also.
Yeah.
And pregnant ladies, yeah. So anyhow, and I think Joe brought out very aptly that the people who are taking part in the trial might not be the people who will receive the vaccine when it's
Benefit
actually,
from.
yeah, that's another question, the importance of sharing the benefits and the burdens of research. And that's another ethical, which I usually give that in COVID particularly, that doesn't seem to, that's an area that has also come up, the importance of sharing of benefits and burdens. Yeah.
And it is the year of benefits and harms. I think it is themed.
Yes, it is our World
properly.
Bioethics
Yeah.
Day. Yes.
Yeah.
Spent looking at benefits and harm. Yes.
One thing I'd like to raise, just like Professor Mary said, of course, Iraq is not as big as India is, and its population is much, much less. But on the other hand, politically, we are an unstable country, and there are a lot of countries like us. So probably distribution of vaccine once it arrives and buying vaccines in countries with limited resources would be very, very difficult. So this is again another issue to consider ethically.
I certainly think that's absolutely true. What about, and that's what Mary brought up, how, we know in Australia, everyone's going to get a vaccine. It's been, the government has put in, but what about, other countries? And that's the important question, like India and maybe Iraq and many more countries like that. So there's a social justice.
You have to pay, if you have to pay for the vaccine, it becomes a problem unless the government makes it free, which I don't think is a very feasible solution.
I think, but even political stability is a very relative term these days.
Shabir, that's an important issue, the relativity of political stability.
So
I think forums like this raise a number of important things, and what Dr. Prakash, Ved Prakash said was actually really important. And I think the fact that we have an educational platform emphasizes a few fundamental truths that we cannot sacrifice. And I agree with Dr. Mishra. We have to reinforce that. Sometimes I wonder whether you need an external agency monitoring drug trials in other countries to bring about or to enforce. Obviously, we can't enforce, but at least to monitor. I often wonder whether it's important.
Well,
so Professor Russell, the carry-home message is COVID coercion.
Yes, that's a good.
Very aptly put in. COVID coercion is the only carry-home message which humanity is required to be carrying in the present context in its various colors and contours.
I think that was a good, we learned that COVID coercion. That's
COVID coercion, yes.
Yeah, like the COVIDization, Mary talks of the COVIDization of research. All right, so that's really
so I guess we still have some questions in the chat box. I mean, the situation is also still fluid, so there's still room for more discussions really to go on. And I'm really impressed that after more than 2 hours, we still have more than 100 participants. I mean, the Honorable Professor Kami is still there. Yeah, I'm really, really grateful. So maybe we should go on and put a closure to this nice event we had today, expressing our deepest gratitude to Professor Kami, still out there with his camera on, and Professor Russell D'Souza and all the distinguished international panelists we had. Thank you so much for being with us here, despite the different time zones we had, and to all the other guests that we had from over the other continents, other units, distinguished guests from our university and ministries. I'd like to say a big thank you to all of you, and hopefully we can continue on events like this. Maybe we can answer those questions still lingering in the chat box next time. Professor Russell, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Tara and Dr. Ali and Nazra, Dr. Professor Nazra, for this great opportunity for all of us to meet. I'm delighted here. I'm delighted because we've had all the heads of most of from Asia have all been there. And again, it's an opportunity from the Department of Education to have our colleagues from all over, from Trevor to Shabir and so forth. I want to particularly acknowledge Joe and Shabir, who got up at 2 o'clock in the morning to be with us at 2 o'clock, and I'm very thankful and really appreciate your commitment to the Department of Education, and you've been doing this quite often. In fact, we do have the next one of the meetings in Shabir's country, Canada, our Canadian unit next Thursday. I'll be doing it at 4 o'clock in the morning, doing the presentation. And this is a great opportunity for our coming together and demonstrating solidarity in what we are doing. So I want to thank everyone, and particularly all of you, but also your president and your ministry, or I don't know if it's a minister or the ministry. I'm very grateful, and I really appreciate all of you here. And Professor Kami, I want to thank you. All of us are delighted here that Professor Kami himself, he's given us the honor of being there at the inauguration and welcoming of Hawler Medical University into our program. So thank you so much for that.
Professor Ali, any last words?
Well, thank you very much, Professor Russell, Professor Kami, for being here with us. And as always, Professor Matthew, Dr. Mishra, all distinguished guests from Joseph Thornton. It's in the middle of the night. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for all. And it was a great day for us at Hawler Medical University to get this being part of this bioethics community, global community of bioethics. Thank you very much. Of course, Professor Derek D'Souza as well. You've been with us for always. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And compliments to all of you for a real sterling success.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye to all. Yes.
Good night, Professor Joe.
Joe and Shabir, thank you very much. Dr. Harris.
I think they just went off.
Yeah. Good night.
Thank you. We have Dr. Harris from, Dr. Rizwan from Pakistan, Dr. Saras from Pakistan. Welcome to all of you, and thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Professor Kami.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Amnon, thank you very much. And thank you, Tara, for all what you've been doing.
Yeah, thank you, Tara.
Thank you for your assistance and your support all along. It's much appreciated.
You're part of our international team now.
Yeah, we're part of the family.
Yes.
And honest, thank you.